all for this opportunity. We're really glad that we're partnering with BAF, and I think it's important that there are more collectives and aggregations that come together on these kinds of campaigns. Historically, it has. We only catalyze these things, and everybody else joins in, and that's what really makes it work. So we're very, very excited about this call, and of course, seeing how we can maximize the last few days that we have, given that we started this year very late. So very quickly, My City, My Budget has been running in partnership with BBMP for the last 6 cycles. We did a pilot in 2015, and then we started with a formal partnership after that. So what has happened over the years is that every year we've been working with citizens. We ask them for inputs, and all kinds of inputs come in, right? And it ranges from roads and footpaths to parks, playgrounds, streetlights, water supply, transport, and the whole gamut of activities. And the BBMP, while in one of the years, which was in 2017, managed to pull in some budgets and allocate them to inputs that had come in from citizens, it also has become very difficult for them to take in all this, right? There's over 90,000 inputs that keep coming in. Right? And a significant number of people participate. They participate online, the bus goes out, people come in through RWAs, community groups, volunteer groups. And therefore, in the spirit of making this truly collaborative, but also somewhat outcome and impact oriented, the last year, we worked with them to say that, why don't we focus on 1 or 2 initiatives, 1 or 2 thematic areas of infrastructure that you can actually influence and get done, right? Therefore, we last year launched the campaign with footpaths and public toilets. Basically, the concept was, how can we make Bangalore a pedestrian-friendly city? How can we ensure that significant kilometers of roads, ultimately 100%, of course, over multiple annual cycles, and can we end public urination, which is the Yellow Spot campaign. So we launched it like the Yellow Spot campaign. So under these 2 thematic categories, there were a bunch of inputs that were sourced from citizens. So we had over 9,000 inputs that came in. And this was done on 2 levels. There was a budget bus, which is also running right now. And there were about 7 budget autos. There were electric autos that were also flying around the city. And they would go to places which had high footfalls, right? So there would be parks, there could be bus stops, there could be transport hubs, or there would be significant junctions, colleges, corporates, or where communities chose to seek these vehicles and say, we want to use it in our ward and we'd like to run local campaigns. So it was available for communities to run local initiatives in their own wards. The other was an online form, which everybody could fill, and we did some online campaigns around it. A lot of the online inputs also were shared and promoted by many of our partners who joined on the campaign. And we had over, I think, 40, 45 organizations, including BAF, that was there last year too, partnering on this initiative. Right. So last year, of course, our inputs were split somewhat equally between, yellow spots and footpaths. And proceeding from that, the last part or the last phase of this campaign is a formal submission of these inputs that come in to the BBMP. So we did that last year too. And so what we do is, all of this comes into the back end. There is a database that keeps getting filled as and when these inputs are being entered by citizens. And the ones that come in the form, come in the bus, are in physical forms. They get data entered, they're also input, and then there is an analysis done. There is a breakup and all the details of locations and everything. And then what we did last year was, we actually took all of these inputs and went to the BBMP and said, see, this is what citizens want to do, right? And therefore, there are so many public toilet inputs that have come in. There are so many inputs that have come in for footpaths. Now, one of the important things to do is to actually cost them. To say how many, if there are 4,000 public toilet inputs, right? Doesn't mean you need 4,000 toilets, right? You need a specific number of toilets which are in some logical way required in these 4,000 different locations. So there was a spatial analysis done. We did geocode each one of these inputs and see which is the nearest public toilet available. Is it because of a lack of cleanliness or badly maintained toilets that there were yellow spots right outside? Or was it that there was really no toilet in a 500 to 1 kilometer vicinity, and was that why there were yellow spots or public urination occurring in these areas. So through that exercise, we arrived at 236 public toilets that were requested by citizens out of all the inputs that they had shared. Similarly, on the footpath also, we actually worked with the engineers to cost it, because each footpath or each input that you give has a geocode, has a location. So it's easy to know exactly in which ward that particular footpath is present. And so there was I wouldn't say it's an accurate costing, but it's an approximate costing to say if we had to repave, if we had to really build a new footpath, or if we had to fix or remove debris, what would it cost? And therefore, costing was also arrived at and submitted to the BBMP. I must say that the total cost, I think, of both these was less than 50 crores when we did the approximate costing and gave it. But the good thing is when the BBMP budget was announced, they actually set aside 60 lakhs per ward, which is 120 crores for all of these wards across, to be used by ward committees to fulfill the needs on potholes, footpaths, and on borewells. So they may not be apples to apples. Of course, we wanted more things, they have given something. But I think the important aspect to remember here is that this is the first time any city government and we work with so many has formally set aside money in the budget, calling it out as to be spent by citizen intervention, by citizen demand through ward committees, a notification being sent saying that all resolutions have to be passed by ward committees and then executed. Start to see how the consistent effort of citizens over multiple annual budget cycles
shut the fuck up.
Have resulted in some of this money actually being set aside. Of course, the argument is always present that this money is never going to be sufficient. There is just not enough. There's too much. The needs are really high, and 20 lakhs for footpaths is not going to make the cut. Obviously, I mean, we all know that. But I think it's a great step forward in making this happen. So even as we were working with a few communities last year to see how they can utilize this 20 lakhs for footpaths and potholes and so on, we said we have to start, and we can't let another year go by wherein we don't have another campaign running, because this is an ongoing partnership.
Okay.
So because of the third wave, we had to delay the onset of the campaign, and it began a little later than is normally planned. It normally happens in the December period, which is just before the budget cycle and preparation happens in the BBMP. But this year it has been moved out a bit. So we're running the campaign till March 15th, and it'll be great to have this, have all of you engage and spread the word and participate and provide all the inputs that you need into this campaign by March 15th. Let me pause here and we can take in some questions. And then if there's anything more that you'd like to know, there are other data, slides that we can actually share. I'm not going right now into how we work with some of our focus communities, so utilize the money. We can do that maybe a little later. And the focus
we have some intruders. I'm just trying to. I see a lot of spam. That's nature of a public meeting. I see a lot of spam people joining, and I'm just battling and removing. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. So yeah, please. I'm open.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can take questions from anyone. Yeah.
That's fine. We keep ignoring these people and we can talk. Please go ahead. This is a useful meeting.
Okay, if everyone can hear me, I have just paused.
I can fucking hear you.
Wow. Okay.
Please go on. Like we will hear you.
Yeah. No, I was just saying I have paused speaking right now so that I can take in any questions on what I have spoken so far and what we have just presented. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to maybe put them on the chat or just check in with me.
Is there salt in your toothpaste?
Okay, I haven't seen the chat window, so Vishnu, if someone can just look at that.
Is there salt in your toothpaste?
Okay, there's nothing very useful on the chat apparently.
Vishnu.
Yeah.
Audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, this is the budget of 21-22, BBMP budget 21-22, correct?
That's right.
So this should be our guideline for the upcoming the budget bus and other initiatives.
See this the slide that you're seeing on the screen is.
I'm really sorry. I'm just trying to remove. There was another Manjunath. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The slide that you see on the screen is actually it's an extract from this year's budget, and the new budget for 2022-23 it will be coming out sometime in the 3rd or 4th week of March.
So other than these three categories, whatever you have listed, correct? In case if you want to provide suggestion on other items, is there a way for us to provide those suggestions in the website?
Yeah. You can actually provide it to the nodal officer in your ward if there is a nodal officer. If there is no nodal officer, because I do know that some wards and nodal officers are there but may not be active, or they are actually not there. They've been transferred, moved out, and it's not an active ward. Please then just send in because we don't have a formal ward committee, right? All our ward committees right now are volunteer and they're informal ward committees because elections have not happened. You can actually send those requests into the Special Commissioner of Finance, Tulsi Madhini. You can actually send it to her. She's in charge of budget preparation. In addition, you can also copy your zonal commissioner of the ward, the zone in which you actually fall under, so that you have a send it to your zonal commissioner with a copy to Tulsi Madhini. That's one way of getting it across if you don't have your nodal officers present and active in your ward.
Thank you.
Vishnu, one small suggestion here.
Yeah.
Like the process suggested by Ms. Sapna would be a more elaborate or a long drawn process. Is it possible for BAF to centralize it or channelize it through our admin body?
You could do that. My only suggestion to you all when you do that is to make sure that ideally, if it can be sent electronically with geocoded locations, it just becomes easier to process post the budget. So that actually makes it a lot more efficient, because otherwise they find it very difficult to process, letters and other documents and things like that. So if it goes in an Excel with geocodes and by ward, then there is a higher chance that it's easier for them to process and understand what really needs to be done.
And one more query, ma'am. Apart from the 5 initiatives of the last budget that we have seen, is there a possibility of other initiatives like potholes or probably road safety? Are these going to be considered? I'm sure this will be considered based on the number of interest or intent that you receive. Yeah. But is there a possibility, like in our area, Whitefield, the primary challenge is the road safety. Because of COVID, people are now habituated to driving fast, and people now we are the traffic is coming back. It should not. Are there enough plans in place to check those undue drivers or riders, and because the road infrastructure will need some revamp. In the last 2 years, it was missed out. It was not required after, and it generally gets missed out because not many people in Whitefield actually vote or share their opinions.
Sure. Yeah. So there are two aspects to this. One is road safety is a combination of, well, there is infrastructure which catalyzes good road behavior, and as road users we align to that. The other is enforcement itself. So there are the infrastructure piece. There are some of it which can be done by the BBMP itself, right? Which is on footpaths, on street lights, on drivable roads, on actually calming measures for traffic and so on. Some of it is done in coordination with the traffic police, right? So there are both. So if there are, as far as I know today, I'm not sure what the BBMP is planning to do specifically for road safety. They don't. I have so far not seen anything called out to promote road safety in the budget. Though I completely agree with you on the need to actually create safety measures on our streets. Right? So there are two. So there are two aspects. So one of these things is to actually look at then sending it also to the traffic police, right? Because they also have a role to play in ensuring that some of these inputs are factored into the plans they have at the local divisions and their subdivisions and the police stations. Because
Why?
of the, and I mean, because the boundaries are not contiguous, right? So there's always going to be overlap. I'm sure many of you know that. So there will be different police stations possibly that will, fall under this jurisdiction. So that's also an aspect to consider. But anything to do with infrastructure on roads, footpaths, streetlights, road humps and so on, part of it is done by the BBMP. So it will end up having to be a road safety, of awareness or a road safety requirement that will have to be presented to both at the local jurisdiction.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Sapna. Well, one other point, maybe I also lost track a bit while removing some of the people. So, but one question is about why is, let's say, the My City, My Budget does not focus much on, at least in this moment, on the PHCs, primary health centers, for example. That's one of the points that I wanted to mention. Let's say in our ward, 82 BBMP staff has done a phenomenal job, but they lack the facilities or they lack the space to do more. And especially one important aspect, I mean, the reason I'm bringing that up is for the fact that there are so many, people who migrate from other states who cannot afford to go to corporate hospitals and all. They look at it as a lifeline, right? So for any fever or any illness they get, they would first try to go to PHC first, right? So for such a thing, I think maybe in future, or that's one input that we could give to BBMP also on PHCs.
Yeah. See, no, absolutely. I mean, there is no disagreement on that. In the earlier, campaigns, there were right from planting trees to air quality, all kinds of inputs have been sought. The decision on what areas of input to seek is also, weighed in by the BBMP itself. It also is linked to on actually creating a certain sense of closure and output to this, right? So that if they're anyway going to invest, then can we invest in something which is prioritized by the citizens so that they can actually show movement in terms of projects and implementation. Having said that, of course, we should definitely, and we'll be happy to consider it going forward. But even as I say this, I do believe in the state budget, there has been a significant allocation to improve the number of PHCs across the state and also specifically in Bangalore. Though exactly where they are going to, have additional PHCs come, I'm not clear on that yet in terms of actual locations. But I do know that there is a state budget allocation to increase the number of PHCs in the city. So just to know that there is a consideration and there is an allocation that's already done by the state, and hopefully the BBMP will follow through and do something on its own.
Sure.
It's definitely something that you can write, specifically if you have a ward in which you want it, to the Special Commissioner of Finance when you're sending in any category which is outside of this particular campaign right now.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Vidya, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Last year was very good. We participated for the first time. And, while the My City, My Budget campaign, we picked up just a couple of, 3 topics as such. After that, we also did a little exercise on the ward needs and the budget, which we, collated and without the financials, of course, just identifying what is it that we need. And we had submitted it to the State Finance, the Special Commissioner of Finance. Of course, it's a slow process. I think we all know it, but at least I think the first step was taken from the ward level to be even submitting that. Right. So 2 things I wanted to know. One, of course, post that 60 lakhs announcement based on the last year inputs, we did not have the nodal officer continuity, right? So by the time they announced, we did not have. So now what happens to this 60 lakhs? Because today we have just sent a letter and seeking an appointment, trying to ask for, immediate appointment of the nodal officer. So what happens if the nodal officer is not onboarded immediately? Will the 60 lakhs get carried forward? And the second question is for this current exercise that we are doing, do we expect something more in terms of budget, or do we think it will be along similar lines? And going forward, will it include a few more things because this is a little restrictive in, as you
Yeah.
rightly said, focus on some elements at least instead of the vast needs that may arise. So where do you see both these going?
Sure. So in terms of the carry forward and what has been and how the budget process works, right? So just to give you all a very, very high level 2-minute on the budget, right? So the BBMP has about 9,000 crores odd as the annual budget, right? And in that, over the years, and it's been 9 to 11,000 crores over the last few years. In that, I don't believe they have actualized more than possibly 7,000 crores at any given in any given year. The other aspect is a lot of the revenue that they need to run the city comes in the form of property tax. So property tax is one of the largest pieces of revenue that comes into the BQ. Right. Then there are additional grants from 15th FC Finance Commission. There are some central scheme grants. There'll be something on Swachhata and other things, and there'll also be state grants. Now, the trend that has been prevalent so far in the last few years on the state grants is while Nagarottana, Shubhra Bangalore, Amrut Nagarottana, whatever is announced, and there are 6,000 crores, 5,000 crores, multiple year grants announced. They don't necessarily flow into the BBMP because the state is also implementing projects for the city. Right. So the BBMP's cash flow will determine how much of money it then allocates for priority items, expenditures, projects, and so on. Also, bearing in mind that the same inflow has to take care of salaries, rents, and other overheads that the BBMP also has to manage, right? And every year they do have high liabilities. Their liabilities are not over. I mean, we keep reading in the paper. There have been many groups, organizations, individuals, even the media that reports on pending bills, contractors not being paid for multiple years. So what the 9,000 crore also includes pending bills, right? So there is a significant portion of pending bills also there in the 9,000. So whatever money comes in, I'm not saying this is the best. This is definitely not the way the budget should be managed. It is the way it is at this point in time. The good news possibly is that there may be some budget reforms that are in place, which will allow the BBMP to strengthen its own fiscal management processes. Having said that, so money is like this, like the 60 lakh. If there is a work that has been allocated for it and it's in the pipeline in the financial management pipeline, then there is the reason and there is a need for it to get carried over in some form. Either it's a pending work, it's spillover from previous years, or it's already been tendered and it's in the system, so it continues and it gets factored into the ongoing budget. If there is nothing at all that has been raised, then there is no guarantee that the same amount will sit there in the coming year. That is one part. The second part is in many conversations, at least on 2 occasions for sure, I'm not sure that I was there for the third one, the Chief Commissioner Gaurav Gupta has explicitly said that he is happy and they're very they've taken a step in the right direction by providing allocations to ward committees, and that they hope to continue that and that they will consider maybe a larger allocation. But it also depends on how participation is happening and so on. But this is a double-edged thing, right? I mean, it's not like our systems are so seamless in ward committees and nodal officers managing the funds to ensure that all 198 wards, the fund was managed through citizen participation. We all know that has not happened, right? And this is the easiest, and sometimes when you look in hindsight, it is easier to have just passed the law, written the rules, and then done that bit, right? The real, the rubber hits the road when people have to participate, when systems have to be in place, and documents have to be there, when meetings need to be held, somebody has to sign a resolution. It has to get tendered. There has to be a contractor. That contract information has to come to the ward committee. So all of this is still not, mature phase. It is what it is today. The thing that we have to do is to stay on this to ensure that the next year more wards participate. We handled a few this year, right? And that itself took time. Of course, COVID also, was a factor, and we lost out in many months, during that. But having said that, there will be a year when things can actually move and become better. But I do see that the only way it will happen is if we just stay on, right? And continue to ask for more, continue to demand more, and continue to put the pressure on the system to respond, right? The response may not always be what we want, right? And ideally, and it's good that the BBMP chose 1 or 2 things, because what we should hold them accountable to is to actually deliver on that. They have called out 1,000 kilometers of footpath, that is 5 kilometers averaging in every ward, as a vision in the last year's budget, right? Now, ideally, we should ask them, well, what happened, right? Where is the 1,000 kilometers of footpaths, right? We have 14,000 kilometers of roads. So 1,000 is nothing. It's a really, really small percentage of the number of roads. And all of us know that, the roads that are the thoroughfares and the major roads, they're the ones who keep getting all the attention, right? But a lot of us utilize local roads, neighborhood roads and so on, where we want a lot of this investment to go, right? You might have only 4,000 odd kilometers of arterial, subarterial roads. A lot of the other 10, 11,000 might be roads which are smaller, but actually carry a lot of traffic and pedestrians, right? But that's where the focus needs to be. But we have to stay on this, right? And say, well, you said this, now let's help you achieve that. The other good thing that the BBMP budget did last year, they said 1% property tax will actually come back to the ward, right? For ward level development. Now, we might say 1% is not a lot, depending on what the ward collects as property tax. But the principle of it is very important. It's not been done anywhere else. So the fact that they're willing to give money back from where it came, right? Like apportion it back to the ward from which it has come, whatever the percentage, is actually a good sign. Now, did they manage to do it this year? I don't think they have actually got to allocating that money back to the ward. But we should hold them true to that, to say that, well, if you've not done it this year, carry it forward into the coming year. I mean, we will do it from our end. Communities like you should also do it from your end, right? Because I think it's important to keep reminding them that it's not a Word document that you speak about, right? It's something that we want to collectively hold each other accountable. We will participate, but at the end of the day, you need to then walk halfway, and make the participation meaningful and so on. It's going to take us some time, but this is what it is. So we hope the allocation increases a little bit. We don't know in what areas it will. I do believe there will be something for EHCs and so on. We'll have to wait and see. But will they knock off the ward allocation? I can't see why they would do that, right? So hopefully, fingers crossed that this continues. Even if nothing, the same amount, but more remains, but categories change. All of these permutations, combinations are possible, right now. So we'll have to just wait and see.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry, long response to your question.
No, it was interesting to hear all the numbers and statistics. And actually, one more question, just at a basic level, when we're talking about ward committee and the corporator and the decisions to be taken, what is the kind of, there are various allocations, right? So that there is no say that we may have in many of those works that they have identified. But at least I hope we get to hear of what it is before suddenly something just springs up in the ward. But the corporator, what kind of amount budget does he really handle? And I know that there are many budgets unutilized. And it's, the need is not coming up from the ward. There are so many things that the inputs can go and we can seek those. If we know that there are some of these items budgeted, then we know these are the needs of the ward and we can prepare our, demand accordingly and submit so that those get utilized. So what is that quantum that
you will do an analysis of the budget as soon as it's out and kind of publish it. It normally gets published in media and so on. You'll get a sense of broadly what are the allocations. See, when the budget was much smaller, there were specific allocations done for singular wards. There was a program of works and all. Now, in the last few years, given that the budget has also grown, they are doing very thematic or infrastructure-wise, I would say, budgeting. And also the budgeting sometimes gets done for multiple wards in one line item. So you don't know if everybody's getting equal share or somebody's getting more, others getting less, because you have no idea until the money actually starts getting, I would say, work orders are drawn, DPRs are drawn up for these works. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, but the only way to stay close to this is to, at the ward committee and with your zonal commissioners, right? I think that's an important space because ideally in the new BBMP bill, the system is a bottom-up budget, like from the zones and so on. But it may not actually have happened this year, given timelines and the systems being set in place. So it could again be a city budget that is going out to zone. So we could have possibly a different budget, which is allocated across the newer jurisdiction and structure as per the new BBMP. So we don't know. We'll wait and see.
Okay. Any more questions, Vishnu?
Anyone from the chat? I'm sorry, I removed so many people. I don't know if I removed some genuine people as well. So if feel free to raise your hand or just type it in the chat so we can see any questions. If not, then maybe we can give a couple of minutes to Vidya to talk about how it was done last year and maybe what she's doing now. Maybe a quick 2 minutes thing in their ward or area. Yeah. I mean.
I think your connection is choppy. Not able to hear you, Vishnu.
Let me switch off my video and try.
Yeah, now you are clear.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the, there are a few other inputs, for instance, like how the allocation happens for each ward or a zone, because some areas pay high property tax or high population density, or some things about, let's say, be it road digging or things like PHC, etc. Right. So how about the questions or the points or inputs that are beyond what was covered in the My City, My Budget portal? So how do we collate those from BAF side and share it with you, or is there any plan from BBMP side to take those inputs other than what it is? That, you're on mute, Sapna. You're on mute, Sapna.
Sorry. So BBMP has generally already called for inputs as part of the annual cycle. So they put out a notice, and because they don't do a great job of publicizing it consistently, so everybody is aware. That's one thing. So you can actually drop it off at the BBMP. There is a box in which you can drop it. But I would suggest that if you can drop the inputs, like I said, with details on what exactly needs to be done and where, right? That would actually help them process it better. Give it at the zonal level with a copy to the Special Commissioner of Finance, Tulsi Madineni, who sits at the BBMP head office. I think that process will work. So anything out of this that you want to submit, you want to seek budgets for, we should definitely follow that process. This is the time. If you can just give it within this week, it might be a good time to submit whatever you need. Sorry, did I answer all of what you asked? Is there anything pending, Vishnu?
Okay, I think we seem to have sort of lost Vishnu, his voice.
No, I'm here, but yeah, anyways, I think Vidya, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay, no, I think some part of your question also, maybe I'll just sort of try to answer based on whatever has been the experiences in the past 2 years, I think. So far as last year goes, as I said, when we partnered with Janaagraha for this MCMB initiative, it was something new, and I think the budget bus and all gave a lot of visibility to the ward residents so that they could come down and they could, share their suggestions and so on without expecting anything. I think last year the expectations was there were no expectations that it would something would get allocated or some such thing. So it was a pleasant surprise, I think, when this 20 lakhs were announced for each ward. So the way we went about it was, while the budget bus and all could be, a one initiative within the ward, what we did, most of us, I think, we stay in large communities, right, wherein we have access to almost anywhere between 500 to 2,000 residents. So what I looked upon it as an exercise to sort of engage more with the residents and make them come forward to voice their various issues. Because the managing committee of any apartment association, while it can handle internal roads and issues, residents do come up and say, hey, outside the road, there is some water logging, or there is no footpath, or there are potholes. If BBMP is not doing, can we do something about it, and things like that. So we said, if a lot of these issues you have, then why don't you utilize this opportunity to voice these issues? So what we did was, even before the budget bus and all could visit us, we kept some drop boxes. Like, for example, today only I received some of these budget input forms from Janaagraha. And we have already now kept at our main gate these boxes and the forms and told people you have, today and tomorrow until Friday to sort of submit all your inputs. And these 3 days also gives the residents a lot of visibility into the activity. And then they know that there are a couple of people who coordinate and who know, so they can always call us up and they can ask what is it that, we are expected to do. So generally give them an idea of what are the ward issues, and if they have been aware of it, they certainly know and they give those inputs and so on. So this is what I did last year, and this is what this year also I'm following, so that I think more and more people are getting aware. And what I see is this translates into increased participation in the ward committees as well. So now that they have seen some impact of it from I think 2019 early, we had started ward committee participation, and we had formed some a WhatsApp group of people which hardly had, there was no non-existent group, from which we were about 10 of us who were into it. And today we have that group which is almost 110 people and residents of different blocks and layouts within our own ward. So and today we are talking about just last week on how we could reconstitute something for our entire ward as a unified RWA, wherein representatives from various apartment associations and layout associations can come together and form something. This looks like a very powerful, a body, because you are representing each and every part of the ward, just like you would say constitute an area sabha and pick, because area sabha, you have not reached that stage yet. So this is where we are progressing, and I think at least in our ward things are manifesting very well progressively. And I think we should also say that we were lucky to have a reasonably good nodal officer who sort of encouraged, facilitated, motivated, and educated us on a host of things that happen within the BBMP at the ward level. So this is the way I'm looking at it, not just as a one-time exercise, but also continuously engage with the residents and the ward citizens to come up with the needs as and when. And once we can consolidate, we can present it in the ward meetings. And if there is no nodal officer, in fact, we have just sent, I think yesterday I just sent a letter to the chief commissioner and the zonal commissioners to immediately appoint a nodal officer for our ward who is, transferred elsewhere, the previous nodal officer. And there is also a significant response and interest by the, political representatives as well, because they have seen the citizen groups get together. So I think I'm seeing a lot of progress from that point of view.
Great. Thanks a lot, Vidya. Thank you.
It sounds, I mean, your story resonates so much with what we have been doing the last 2 decades, literally. So it's really great. Kudos to you and all of the volunteers who are working with you. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. And with
Thank
all your support, it will really, we will see a lot of progress, I'm hoping. I can see a lot of interest. Maybe some other time I will come back on that with more details.
Absolutely. And it's really gratifying. I mean, I must tell you all, because I don't think we get a chance to talk about this with this group very often. Because of what we do in My City, My Budget in Bangalore, there are so many cities now who are reaching out saying that they want to replicate this, So we have requests from Faridabad, from Gurugram, from Panaji. Even Bombay has reached out. Coimbatore wants to do something, right? We have Visakhapatnam and Mangalore, which we did a very quick light touch, campaign last year, but and they all refer to this, right? So people keep calling, and the model that y'all have enabled us to, put in place in Bangalore is what makes it so interesting and exciting for other cities to, pick up. And it's great to see the narrative on ward committees and area sabhas and participatory budgeting actually pick up in so many places across the country, not just, restricted to some of us. But I do believe in some sense, and I know I keep saying this even internally at Janaagraha, that we are in some sense a beacon, on how participation can sustain in spite of not seeing full and complete impact, every time. Right. So, I think it's a very strong conviction that people have that we have to continue to collaborate. Right. It's extremely frustrating. I know. With all the years that we've been doing it, it can be really some days you wonder what the hell are we doing really.
No, sometimes I don't know whether is there some change in the political will. I mean, in the sense I'm seeing a lot of consultative process and the fact that yes, maybe we should do it and maybe we will support you kind of a thing. Do you see that? Because I sort of sense that there may be some change there, but I'm really not sure. The impact is not so
No,
huge
there
to come
seems
to
to
that
be,
conclusion.
but
Yeah.
I don't know whether people really understand the complete, let's say, process of what that really means, right? Because it is about taking other inputs. It's about being tolerant of an opinion that is not literally in line with yours. It's about taking data and allocating money where there are needs are the highest. So, and there are political considerations. So there seems to be the wind is swinging in that direction where there is more conversation. There is a narrative that seems to be emerging across, and we'll have to wait and see. But I do believe there is a new, narrative that is emerging on this, and in a good way. So
yeah.
Great. In the interest of time, we are 10 minutes over. We have taken 40 minutes. Thanks a lot, Sapna and Manjunath, taking your time. Any quick final concluding 2 sentences on what are the next steps that we can do from now to 15th?
Yeah, just I would say 2 important things. One is please ensure that go onto the link and submit all the inputs that you can. Spread the word on that. I did hear Vishnu did tell me that there was some problem in accessing the link. But it seems to just refresh the browser or just type it in, into your browsers on your phone or on your laptops. That's one thing. Please let us know if you need the bus to come to your neighborhood, right? There is a form, there is a Google form that you can fill, which will tell Manjunath, if the bus has already been booked by somebody else or if it's available for you, but he'll be able to coordinate. So if you want to do something over the weekend, on Friday evening or whatever works for you, just give us some input on that and we'll make sure the bus comes to you. So that's what I have to say, Vishnu. Those are my 2 action items for you. Tell us if you need the bus and then please submit the form, spread the word.
Thank you very much, everyone, for spending time, and thanks to Janaagraha team, Sapna and Manjunath, for joining in and streamlining this whole process and giving us insights. Thanks.